Hello and welcome to Sam Not So Wise. My name is Sam. So 2025 is coming to a close. So it's time to look ahead to next year and what my priority reads are going to be. Yes, 2026 is coming very quickly, but also I'm slipping this in because it was an easy video to make in a way. And at the moment I'm extremely busy. I'm at the end of my university term, so I've got exams and assignments. I'm currently attending a literature festival here in Reykjavik, Iceland. I saw George R.R. Martin talking last night and I'm going to see him tonight as well. And I've been going to all sorts of talks from authors as well as screenwriters and all that kind of stuff. So it's absolutely amazing fun. And I'm just actually squeezing this in between a couple of talks that I want to go to. But anyway, these are going to be my priority reads for next year. I'm going to talk about this series. I want to read the SF Masterworks challenge I have, other general reads as well as school reads that I'm definitely going to be getting to. This is obviously not set in stone, especially if you know me. Things always change and I like some flexibility in my reading plans. But the biggest reason these plans could change is because me and my wife are having a baby soon. Literally any day he could come now, and that's obviously going to be a huge priority for me, the priority, and could seriously affect any moods or energy I have. I don't know, but maybe you know if you've had a kid what that's going to be like for me. But these are what I'm the most excited about for next year and what I want to try and prioritize. So we will see how that goes. So with that and more further ado and stumbling, let's talk about my priority reads for next year. So let's start off with this series that I am going to read. I do want to make a quick note that I am not like those crazy booktubers out there who have 5 million series on the go at a time. They've read lots of book ones. Like, fair play to you guys if you want to do that. All power to you. But I can't do that. It's mainly because I'm stupid and my brain is tiny and cannot hold all of that information of different series at the same time. So I generally have 2 or 3 series going at a time and I try and finish them in quite a punctual manner if possible, which is not always the case, especially with the first series I'm going to mention, which is Malazan Book of the Fallen. Now, I have read 3 books so far. I just finished Memories of Ice this week and I am absolutely loving it. It is brilliant. So I'm definitely going to be continuing that in 2026. Now, these books do take up more time to read. It took me about a month to read Memories of Ice, along with other books, of course, and they are heavy, both in terms of just the length and their complexity and the thematic depth within them. So these may not be the most conducive reads to baby times, fresh baby times, but I love it so much that I just have to continue reading the series. My plan is to read about 1 every other month. That's what I'm hoping. Obviously, next is House of Chains. So I may or may not finish the series by 2026. I mean, I would love it if I could, but I just have to see how I get on. So the next one will be the Lamplight Murder Mystery Trilogy. So I want to read more self-published works. I've not read many. I really want to get into that more and see what the self-published world is doing. Now, I'm interested in this series because it seems quite light and fun, and that might be helpful. Again, whilst having a new baby, it might be easier to get through such a series. But we will see, because I actually want to start this series in December. So if I enjoy that first book, then I will continue on to the next 2 books in the trilogy. Now, the next one I want to read is the Firefall duology. Now, I was sent this by the wonderful Whitney at Secret Source of Storycraft. She actually says that duologies aren't a series. This is an interesting conversation we've had. I think they are. I'd love to know what you think about that. I think they are, so I'm including it in this series section. I haven't gotten to this yet, which I'm quite ashamed of, and we'll talk about that more later, actually. So this is a duology that starts with Blindsight, and the second book is Echopraxia. Now, this kind of sci-fi sounds like my kind of sci-fi. Very heavy stuff, very, cognitive stuff, and I use that word on purpose. So I've also heard that it's quite a divisive book, Blindsight in particular, and I just want to see on which side I fall. So if I enjoy Blindsight, I will definitely go on to Echopraxia. So this is the two books in one, and I'm very, very excited to get to this series. Now, another series that Whitney has talked about, and one that I've been interested in a long time, is the Bas Lag trilogy by China Mieville, starting with Perdido Street Station. This has been highly recommended to me by many people, and so many people, when they talk about it, I just get excited about it. They're quite chunky books, but I like chunky books, but it just sounds quite a unique trilogy, and unique is a buzzword for me. So I really want to try that and see how I get on, and I'm kind of expecting that I'll absolutely love it. So that is another big priority. Those are the main priorities. Another one that I've kind of got ongoing, which kind of goes against my rule of having series ongoing, is the Tyrant Philosopher series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I didn't prepare the books because I am never professional. So these are City of Last Chances and House of Open Wounds, which I have read and absolutely loved. Now, these books, though, they are kind of standalone in nature. There's not a lot of crossover of places or characters. And so that's why this is one I've given an exception to in my rule of trying to finish things in a quite quick manner. So I really want to get to book 3, Days of Shattered Faith. There's another novella out as well, and I believe another book is coming out. I'm not sure if it's next year. So because these are standalone in nature as well, that's a good way of me getting through more of this series next year. So those are the series priorities. So next up, I want to talk about the Sci-Fi Masterworks series. If you don't know, I set myself a massive challenge to read all of the Sci-Fi Masterworks books, as well as the Fantasy Masterworks books, which there are less of, but I read both of those genres, so I really wanted to do that big challenge. Now, if you haven't seen anything about that, I'll pop a link in the description to the first video, and you can go from there if you want to. This is a long-term project because that is like 200 books. So yeah, it is long-term. I gave myself like 15 years or something, but to even be able to do that, I need to keep up with it. I need to keep up a good pace. So I will be reading a lot of SF Masterworks books within next year. So I'm going to list those now that I already own. So these are the ones that are more likely to be read because I already own them, but there will be more, but these are just going to be sooner. So the first one, the only one I actually have in physical, is Tau Zero by Paul Anderson. I know basically nothing about this book, although I hear it is quite heavy in terms of the sci-fi. So we'll see how I get along with that with Baby Brain, but it is very short, so that is a good thing. Now the rest I own on Kindle, mainly because I can get them quite cheap. Especially when they come up on these daily deals that we have in the UK. I know I live in Iceland, but I'm still connected to the UK with that, so I get books for £1 sometimes, which is very cheap, and I can't say no. So the next one will be Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. I'm currently reading Childhood's End, which is also an SF Masterworks book, and my first Clarke, so happy to get more Clarke in there, and there's a lot of Clarke on that list. Next up is The Chrysalids by John Wyndham. I have read 3 books by John Wyndham and absolutely loved them all. Really love his style. So I think this may even be perhaps the most lauded of his books. So I'm very interested to get to that one. Another one is Babel 17. I still don't know how to say that. By Samuel Delaney. Not read any Delaney. There's a few on that list. So very much looking forward to seeing his style. Heard mixed things about this one, so I'm hoping I enjoy it, of course. Next up is The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. Very famous book, so very excited to get to it. I love the idea of this time dilation story. Now I believe this is a series as well, although kind of loosely, so I hate only reading book 1, so I'd like to hear from people if they have read the rest in the series and they think it is worth reading on, or you can just read the first one. That information would be very useful to me, but that one is definitely getting read. Also, I have Inverted World by Christopher Priest. I've kind of been saying I'll be reading this all year, but I just haven't got to it yet. I know a lot of people really love this book and really love this author. Again, he has a few on the list, so this will be my first from him. Very much looking forward to it. And finally, the last one I own is Non-Stop by Brian Aldiss. He has 2 or 3 on the list. Never read any of him. Heard great things, so I don't really know what this story is about, but I'm very much looking forward to getting to it. So, like I said, I'll likely find more, either hopefully in the wild, in physical format. I like buying things secondhand, so I'll be going to secondhand shops and looking for them. Or if I don't, then these Kindle daily deals for £1 will likely suck me in if I see them, and I'll buy them there. So yeah, I want to read more than the 7 that I've listed, and I will, but for the moment, these are the ones I own, so are definitely going to be read next year. So the next section, this is the Whitney books section. So when I mentioned Firefall earlier by Peter Watts, I mentioned that Whitney, the wonderful Whitney over at Secret Source of Storycraft, link in the description, she bought me that book along with a bunch of others. She is an absolute best, an absolute gem, and she sent me like 9 or 10 books at the start of the year, beginning of January, and I've read a chunk of them, but there's quite a few left over, including Firefall, and 3 more that I'm going to talk about here. So I'm starting to feel bad because that was such a wonderful, generous thing to do, and I've still got these books left to read. I mean, you know, life happens, choices get made, but now I really want to prioritize these 3 other books as well as the Firefall duology. Hopefully within the first half of the year, kind of at the very least, maybe the first quarter, we'll just see how it goes. But these are priorities for me for sure, of the highest priority. So first up, the most exciting to me probably is Neil Stephenson, 7 Eves. Now, me, Bart and Whitney read together Anathem by him, which is my first book by him. A really interesting reading experience. Good, but not amazing. Some parts of absolute brilliance and kind of a slightly disappointing second half. But now I am very intrigued to read more Neil Stephenson. Now I hear that this book has kind of quite a controversial ending in a way, or a controversial second half, something like that. I love that kind of stuff. I want to see which side I fall on. So very excited to get to more Neil Stephenson. Now, another buddy read we did, those 3 of us, plus Richard, we read Eon by Greg Bear. Again, my first Greg Bear. That was also kind of a mixed experience, but again, I'm interested in reading more. And guess what? She sent me a book by Greg Bear, Darwin's Radio. Now, I believe this one is a lot more kind of biology based from my memory, which is crap. Kind of to do with viruses and stuff. I've probably got that completely wrong, but I'm very much excited to read more Greg Bear. There's a couple more actually on the SF Masterworks list, so I definitely will. This one isn't, but I'm happy to read more and see. You know, I'm currently confused about how I feel about him just from that one book, and that is just not enough to make a decision about an author. So very happy to get to this one. And finally, the third book is Permutation City by Greg Egan. Now, this is an author who is somewhat scary. I've heard he writes extremely complex sci-fi books, but apparently this one is maybe a little less difficult. I'm not really sure. It's a little bit shorter than some of his other works, I think, as well. I don't really know, but she sent me this, and I'm very highly intrigued to try out his writing style and see how I get along with it. So this one will also definitely be read. Thank you, Whitney, again. You're an absolute gem, and I love you. So the next section is just others, and that is just books that didn't really fit into those 3 other sections, but books that I'm absolutely dying to read. So first up, I'll talk about Ian Banks / Ian M. Banks, my favorite author of all time. I'm always talking about him. I keep saying I'll read others of his books, and they just keep getting pushed down the line, which is shameful considering he's my favorite, and I still have quite a few to read, even though I've already read 16 of his books. So I really need to get to more. So these are ones that I already own, so we'll get to for sure. First one is Dead Air. I've been talking about this for about 6 months, so this one has to happen first. Hopefully within the first 2 or 3 months, maybe even sooner. We'll see how life goes, but I have to read Dead Air by Ian Banks. So Ian Banks, not Ian M. Banks, because it's not his sci-fi stuff. Another Ian Banks one that I picked up recently is Dare Street. I have no idea what these are about, but I love them so much it doesn't matter. I'm going to read everything. This one's quite short, which is nice. So again, hopefully will be easily read in 2026. And finally, I have an Ian M. Banks book, Fearsome Engine. This one is also actually on the SF Masterworks list, so I can tick another one off with this. It's quite short for him for a sci-fi book. And I believe it's quite weird. At least what it says on the back is extremely weird, and I have no idea what it's talking about, but I trust him to do a good job because he pretty much always does. So these are some Ian Banks books that I have to read. Another British author that I really love is David Mitchell, and I have read all of his books but 2. So those 2 books I have left, and I'm going to read them in 2026 and finish off all of David Mitchell's books. So the ones I have left are The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet. That's an awkward title. I had to write it down to make sure I got it right. Don't really know anything about this, but I believe it has a very bizarre beginning to do with giving birth, actually, so could be quite relevant to at least something that's going to happen soon. Not to me, obviously, but my wife. So interested to hear about that. I've heard it's very good, actually, so I'm excited about that. And finally, his most recent book, Utopia Avenue. Again, I don't know much about this, but the one thing I've heard about it was from my brother, and he did not like it, and he loves David Mitchell as well. So that's a little bit worrying, but I have to read all of his books because that's what I'm like. I've heard it's quite nostalgia based, so I guess it depends on how I get along with that. Next author I really love is Stephen King. Now, I generally tend to read about 2 or 3 of his books every year, so that is going to continue for sure. I own a couple on Kindle. First, I have Under the Dome. I love that kind of dystopian, weird science fiction that this book is. But it is absolutely huge, like 1,000 pages, but interested to see about that one. I also just bought Carrie, which I believe is his first book. That one's a lot shorter, so that one's definitely getting read. And other ones I'm really interested in, there's quite a lot, but I'd say at the top of my priority list is Pet Sematary, so I'll be keeping my eyes out for that, as well as 11/22/63, which is also another huge book, but definitely 2 or 3 Kings coming up in 2026. Next author, Guy Gavriel Kay. Now, he has become quite popular on BookTube recently. I hear a lot of people talking about him. I've not read any of them. He sounds like my kind of author, my kind of writing, like this really good prose and like deep stuff, kind of subtle. So I'm just really looking forward to trying him, and 2026 has to be the year where I start with him. I'm thinking of starting with either Tigana or Song for Our Barn. Let me know which one you think I should read first. And finally, I want to read more classics. This is something I've slowly been incorporating into my reading, both through school but also in my leisure time. So I want to continue that with a few classics here and there when I can squeeze them in. I'm not really sure what they're going to be. It kind of just depends what I find in those secondhand shops. But classics, I have to continue reading more of those. So that is the others section. Finally, I am studying at university an English degree, which includes a lot of literature. Especially as I move on, I get more choices about literature. I've done a lot of linguistic stuff recently that were like core modules. Core modules are soon stopping, so I can choose more literature. And one module I chose was a James Joyce module. Now, I did actually read a short story by him this term in my English lit kind of survey course. And I quite enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to delving deeper into James Joyce. It's not the really hard stuff though, it's like kind of more beginning of his career, not the like really bizarre stuff. So we will be reading Dubliners, and we will be reading A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. So I'm looking forward to learning more about James Joyce. I also next term have a course called British Literature from 1600 to 1790, so an almost 200-year period, which I don't know what's going to be in there. The only author I've seen named on the module website is Frances Burney, a female writer from the very end of that period. So otherwise, I don't know what else is going to come up, but looking forward to that. I'm also doing a Celtic history module, which includes all sorts of stuff, linguistics and cultural history, but as well there is some literature within it. Again, I don't know what's on the list yet, so you'll find out about that when I do my wrap-ups, but there will be some literature within there. For the autumn term, the only one I know I'm doing, because it's a core module again, is British literature from the medieval period to 1600, so a very long time. And I know for sure that there's things like Beowulf and Chaucer in there, plus obviously a lot more. So these are the ones that I'm definitely going to be reading, like these kind of subjects, and there is one or two modules that I am still yet to choose when I get that choice presented to me. So there's a lot to look forward to with my school reading as well. So that is it for today's video. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So this is already quite a tall task. I've got a lot of reading ahead of me. And, you know, with the baby coming along, I just don't know how it's going to happen. I'm going to have a baby and a degree to study and a part-time job. So things are going to change, and I need to be flexible with that. So these are the ones that I really want to read and I'm really going to try to read, but I can't promise anything. But there we go, that's it. Also, I've got to mention that I do run a book club, so there's going to be a bunch of books that come up within that I don't know ahead of time because we vote on it. Also, I'm sure I will be in some buddy reads here and there which aren't yet decided, especially with the sci-fi group that I always do buddy reads with. So there are other things that are going to push other books out probably because I don't have time to read everything. That's already about 40 books, which is a lot. So those are the plans. So let me know what you're going to read. If you've read any of these books, let me know about them. I'd love to hear your opinions on them. But that is it really. So if you liked the video, please press like. If you're new to the channel, please think about subscribing, and I'll maybe see you in another video soon. I'm not sure, depends when the baby comes. But anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.